All right, guys, gonna do it. Let's get it started out. Stony Progressive. Gonna do a quicker show today because I got a big stream tomorrow. We're gonna go all out for it tomorrow. But so today is gonna be quick. Gonna blaze one up, knock out the press briefing, go over Ohio's medical, and of course I wanted to finish the night talking about mainstream media and how there's some comedians currently getting it way better. But we'll do a Stony takedown, and I am going to start out, as always, a little bit on the slower side. We're going to start out kind of reverse. We're going to do our old school clip right off the bat, and then jump right into it while we wait for a few more people to join. Let's do our old school clip. And today I wanted to do a presidential debate, and this was a few years ago, and it was a highlighted moment of all the recent presidential clips. And I think we should be able to get away with showing this. This is more public domain. Top moments from general election encounters.
Mr. Stewart, and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
Governor Reagan, again, typically is against such a proposal.
Governor, there you go again.
Admiral Stockdale, your opening statement, please, sir.
Who am I? Why am I here?
Governor, if Kitty Dukakis were raped and murdered, would you favor an irrevocable death penalty for the killer?
No, I don't, Bernard, and I think you know that I've opposed the death penalty during all of my life. I don't see any evidence that it's a deterrent, and I think there are better and more effective ways to deal with violent crime.
We have a question right here.
Yes, how has the national debt personally affected each of your lives?
I think the national debt affects everybody. Obviously, it has a lot to do with interest rates. It has.
She's saying you personally.
On a personal basis, how has it affected you?
Has it affected you personally?
Well, I'm sure it has. I love my grandchildren. I want to think that.
I have as much experience in the Congress as Jack Kennedy did when he sought the presidency.
Senator, I served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
That's what the question in this campaign is about. It's not only what's your philosophy and what's your position on issues, but can you get things done? And I believe I can.
You said in the Rose Garden, the day after the attack, it was an act of terror. It was not a spontaneous demonstration. Is that what you're saying?
Please proceed, Governor.
I want to make sure we get that for the record, because it took the president 14 days before he called the attack in Benghazi an act of terror.
Get the transcript.
He did, in fact, sir. So let me call it an act of terror.
Can you say that a little louder, Candy?
He did call it an act of terror.
I'm glad that you recognize that Al-Qaeda is a threat, because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not Al-Qaeda, you said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back, because, you know, the Cold War's been over for 20 years.
Damn, can we show that to somebody today? Oh, the Cold One's been over for 20 years, and now we got restarted in 2016. All over a fake election fraud. That was a great way to start. Sorry, that was fantastic. Funny stuff. Yeah, so let's jump right into it. Like I said, I'm not going to be wasting any time today. wanted to go over a CIA down with a stony progressive takedown. Andy Kim was one of the, on the Wall Street Journal's list, their own list of the CIA Dems. He is serving a district in near Philadelphia. He is New Jersey's 3rd, so I don't see any major towns there. Kind of a interesting looking area as is. If you are anybody you know, 202-225-4765. That's how, if they're your representative and you have a problem, this is how you get a hold of people. It's 202-225-4765. It's always the 202 numbers. Don't look, if you see a different number, that's not their office. So New Jersey's 3rd district is going to be Andy Kim defeated David Richter, the Republican, in 2020 to take the district. And it's a 50-49 area. So this is a very highly contentious area. Trump won over Clinton 51-45. So this is a tight district. And that's very much what the whole slew here is. The last election, Andrew won 53-45. So it's a pretty tight district. David Richter came pretty close. And the People's Party and For the People Party, I don't know. 2 independent parties in that area. And I love reading, oh, wow, even they still have the other person on there. I guess it's such a highly contentious area, even though Kim has been in it for 3 years, they still have it there. So when talked to, Kim discussed healthcare and campaign ads and on his campaign website, saying that he, along with other Democrats, will fight so no one loses their healthcare for having a pre-existing condition and hold down skyrocket insurance premiums. Additionally, he expressed support for expanded care to veterans, a permanently funded children's health insurance, the CHIP program, and community health centers in rural areas. He refers to his working intelligence and foreign affairs, saying, I dedicated my entire career to serving the American people. I worked under both Democrat and Republican administrations and have always will put the nation and the American people above partisan politics. Will you put the American people over the CIA and the deep state's agenda? Just wondering. Just wondering. I'm not on pay. So being in the intelligence agency for quite a while, and being a person that they are, just only worth $250,000. That's just has a little bit of money saved aside, $75,000 retirement, $16,000 in the bank. Just a real basic income, almost no money at all. Oh, that's funny to me. That's a red flag. But has fundraised $16 million in 2 election cycles. So this person has no money to their name, but somehow can fundraise a crazy amount of money. And the Democracy Engine, which is a super PAC for Democrats, and then, of course, Alphabet Inc. So another Google, another ex-CIA getting funded by Google. That is fantastic. We love it when the ex-CIA gets funded by Google and they go into our Congress. That's exactly what we need for America. A couple universities, Microsoft, and Google. Always that's interesting. And Citizens United. Oh, I love it when End Citizens United was supposedly a PAC to stop the PACs, gives money to people who are PAC, AT&T, Microsoft, U.S. State Department gave money. The U.S. State Department is funding this candidate. Oh, just another PAC, another school. Oh, man. So, yeah, I love it when a stop funding super PAC, a PAC that's to help to fund people that don't have super PACs, gives money to people who are just straight up funded. And with every other person, I've never heard this person speak before, they actually have their own site. They have a few subscribers, and they do a few videos. So, like every congressman, this is always entertaining.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to start, Madam Chair, by just asking unanimous consent to enter a letter from Our Pride, New Jersey into the record.
So ordered.
Great, thank you. Our Pride, New Jersey is based in Burlington, and it's in my district. And pre-COVID, there were over 19,000 arts-related businesses in New Jersey that employed more than 80,000 people. In our state, every art and cultural patron spends over $33 in local economies each time they purchase a ticket for a cultural event. And that translates into over $662 million each year in economic impact when cultural venues are fully in operation. So the creative sector clearly is having a real impact in terms of creating jobs and economic activity. But I also want to focus on another element here, which is that it has an impact on our kids. And they've been through an awful lot over the last couple of years. Back in April, I met with the Burlington County Regional Chamber of Commerce, and they connected.
So they see, I mean, this person seems generally caring for this issue. So again, you don't have to disagree with everybody all the time, but they do have deep state connections. Are they going to be concerned about the standard human being in this continent, on this planet, or are they going to be concerned about corporations and government ties first? I think it's pretty standard to see, but
me with an organization called Morristown Theater Company in my district. As a nonprofit arts organization without their own building, they weren't sure if they were eligible for the Shutter Venues Operators Grant. They had to get extra creative during the pandemic and even producing shows out of a parking lot. My office was able to work with them to confirm that they were eligible, encourage them to apply. They ended up getting $200,000 grant. They also utilized the EIDL, the PPP, employee retention credits, and assistance from the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. They report that this grant, along with others, allowed them to keep their doors open and to keep their work going forward. Just yesterday, I checked in, and they were starting rehearsal for an upcoming production of The Little Mermaid, which they're working on with a lot of little kids in the community. And the kids are incredibly excited that we're doing this hearing today and shining a light on the arts and about how it impacts them. I want these kids and kids all over the country to know that we're listening to them and that we understand that this is not just about business, it's about our development and it's about our education to our kids as well. So I just wanted to throw this out there. Ms. Garrett, I know your organization works with professional artists, but if you or any of the other witnesses would like to speak to the importance of the arts for our children, what they have missed during this pandemic, and the benefit of investing in the arts, experiencing the arts education for our children and our families, and what it is that we can try to do to just try to make up for this lost time in terms of, being able to give our kids that opportunity to experience arts, but also to be able to participate in it. So I just kind of wanted to open up if anyone wanted. Ms. Garrett, if you wanted to start off.
I thank you for the question. Numerous studies.
Yeah, we don't need to hear their discussion, but, not everybody is, no one's all bad. So I would say, I hope this person gets primaried. I hope this person gets a solid push from an independent candidate. There isn't currently anybody in that district working that way. And, they have a lot of money. 16 million for 2 different races. That's a lot of money. That's twice as much as you would usually need. So they got pushed into it pretty hard. And it's, like I said, it's a contentious race from a Republican. I would fair to say that your Republican candidate is not going to be any less bought. So that's how the American system works, right? We know it. Just trying to point it out every day. Just a constant reminder. And that was our Story Progressive. Touch on a CIA Dem. Proud of their intelligence because they served our country. Working in the intelligence industry and being a congressional representative is a trend that has happened. It's not a good trend at all. All right. And I did want to cover one protest today, And yeah, New Zealand currently is also taking suit. Vehicles across the country have come down to Wellington and are protesting COVID restrictions. And I probably just got my shut off. This is what they're doing. Hundreds of drivers block roads near New Zealand's parliament to protest, inspired by similar demonstrations in Canada, also in the British Empire. They're against the COVID restrictions and any mandatory vax.
I'm not against vaccination because I am actually vaccinated. I'm actually against mandating people to be vaccinated. I think it's disgraceful forcing vaccination on people who don't want it.
96% of the population have been vaccinated in New Zealand. 96% of their population is vaccinated. That's wild. It's been mandatory in restaurants, sports events, and workplace.
Finally, I can experience a humiliating...
So they are 96% vaccinated, and yet they're protesting that the country is trying to force the last 4% to get the shot. That's so weird. That is wild that they still have protests down there. But as I always say, I stand with protesters. I want to hear them out. If there's that many people gathering, you at least should hear them out. And that's all they are forcing actions to be heard. I'm always with that. All right, like I said, it's going to be a shorter stream, so I am going to start the second half. Going to do 2 press briefings since I didn't do one yesterday, and twice as much Jen in a day is kind of a little bit. So I hope you have a pen ready, a bowl ready, because we're going to take on Jen twice, which is just fantastic stuff right here, guys. I've watched this twice, 2 or 3 times, so let's see how many gaskets I break in my head. So let's watch today's first. Let's start fresh.
Should do, but diplomacy is always going to be the preferred path.
That's one on masks.
Yeah.
When are we going to hear from the CDC on this guidance? California yesterday changed their guidance. Randy Weingarten, Teachers Union, is vocally asking for the White House and the CDC to weigh in. So when are we going to hear from the CDC about updating the guidance on masks?
You'll have to ask the CDC. The CDC moves at the pace of data and science. I would note that our goal remains continuing to ensure that there is guidance that helps school districts stay open. That's our goal. We want kids to be in school. 98% of schools are open. That's a very good sign. We know it works. The CDC is always going to be reviewing their guidance, including mask guidance. But in terms of when they will provide additional new guidance, that is up to them.
Do you believe then that the Democratic-led states who are breaking with the CDC on this guidance, that they're throwing science away and that the CDC has access to different science somehow?
We don't look at it through that prism. These states, I think it's important to note, they still allow for decisions to be made by local school districts. Where we come up with concern, where we have great concern, if a kid or a parent chooses to wear a mask, or a school district decides they should keep mask guidance in place, and there are leaders who are preventing them from doing that. That is the place in some other states. But our hope is that states, leaders, will look at the science and data about what's going on. They'll make decisions about local school districts. Local school districts have always made these decisions. That remains the case. Go ahead.
I'd like to ask about the Supreme Court process.
Sure.
About 3 weeks left before the president.
Who's counting? I know.
That was all I could handle. That part, I think it was. Wow, 2 different videos. Trying to remember. What's this one?
Especially companies that are creating jobs here in the United States and putting people back to work. Go ahead, Katie.
Thanks, Jen. As most people in this room have asked about, the president said yesterday that he would shut down Nord Stream 2 if there was a military invasion. He kind of defined it traditionally as tanks on the ground. So if Putin attacks but doesn't send massive forces over the border, perhaps through cyber attacks or through paramilitary forces, does the president feel the Western alliance could still present a united front, given his conversation with the chancellor yesterday?
Sure, we have a range of contingency. I certainly understand your question, but I don't have anything more to detail here. Obviously, we don't think Nord Stream 2 is a good deal or a good project. We've been very clear about that. And I think right now what we're focused on is what we think the right diplomatic tactic is.
That was like a third of the last two streams, too. They're like, everybody just wants to ask them about this pipeline. And that's the only question everybody asks, is just a different angle on it. Like, just, she gets frustrated and she doesn't say anything new. So it's really bad journalism, really. Like, the whole room doesn't just take it's always the same thing. They always ask the same, like, they just over and over, like, you're going to get her to slip maybe, ooh, or I guess your best idea is that she's going to snap on you.
As it relates to deterrence, which is part of our approach. And that includes making clear that Nord Stream 2 will not proceed, given, of course, President Putin and the Russians want it to proceed. But we have a range of contingencies. Should Putin invade? Should he take other additional steps? And we're going to continue to work to be lockstep with our partners.
Just to clarify, so if it's a cyber attack or paramilitary or anything besides tanks, would he pull, well, I know it's not operational, but would he stop Nord Stream from going forward?
Again, I don't have anything more to update you on. We have a range of contingencies depending on if any steps President Putin takes.
And then would he still keep the science advisor post? Would that still be cabinet level? I know that was a
Yes.
first. Okay.
Go ahead, Karen.
And, the president said yesterday he believes President Putin still has a diplomatic off-ramp, that de-escalation is still possible. Last month at the press conference, less than 3 weeks ago, the president said about Putin, my guess is he will move in. He has to do something. Does he no longer believe that President Putin has to do something? And if that's the case, what has changed in those couple of weeks?
Well, I mean, he either has to de-escalate or invade. Obviously, our preference is that he de-escalates. So I'm not sure. I think that's what the president likely meant in the time. We didn't at the time, nor do we now have an assessment of him making a decision. And we can't control what Russia will do next. What we can do is we can prepare, and we can prepare for a range of contingencies. Yeah, this is a very important story. So I would say these legislators are trying to make it harder for them to be who they are. So we felt it was important to speak out against this action and speak really, and felt it was important to do that today. Go ahead.
What's the White House reaction to the Supreme Court late yesterday restoring an Alabama voting map that a lower court ruled was discriminatory?
Yeah, this is a very important story. So I would say that we need to make sure, as you've heard the president say, that our sacred voting rights are fully protected. We should be moving forward, not backward. That is always the view of the president, the vice president, and this White House. That means ensuring fair election maps that protect the rights of black voters to have an equitable and meaningful opportunity to elect candidates of their choice, as the Voting Rights Act and Supreme Court precedent have guaranteed for decades. It is deeply disturbing to us that the Supreme Court gave Alabama a free pass to use a map that in 2022 that 3 federal judges found to discriminate against black voters. This is exactly what the Voting Rights Act is in place to prevent, and one of the reasons it's so important to pass a reauthorization into law. And they did this without the Supreme Court finding any reason to doubt that conclusion. That is concerning to us, and certainly protecting people's rights, not taking steps backward, is our objective.
The administration, as you know, through the Justice Department, took legal action against Texas. They challenged those maps, perceived as being discriminatory. Given that the voting rights legislation here in Washington has basically been put on pause for a number of reasons, has the White House considered any sort of unilateral or preemptive actions against states that might try to take similar steps as Texas and Alabama did?
Again, I understand the question. I would point you to the Department of Justice, as you know, but for others, we're not a party to this lawsuit, but I would point you to the Department of Justice.
I understand the question, but nope, but no. I understand the question. That's how she answers those. It's so fantastic. All right, we're going to start off yesterday's.
That has been a key point of discussion, and that is agreed to.
And yeah, so I wanted to talk about coverings. And Fox News, of course, has to poke and prod that one. And I think they're the same.
I would also reiterate what we've said in the past is that, well, we have our own sanctions package prepared, which we've been consulting with and briefing members of Congress on, and others do. And we're united in the effort to put forward an economic sanctions package that has significant consequences. As our European partners, it doesn't mean it's identical. So,
To clarify, you said that is agreed to on Nord Stream 2. Just want to clarify, are you saying that the Germans have committed not to bring Nord Stream 2 online if Russia invades?
well, again, I'm not going to get into the private diplomatic conversations, but we have said a number of times that if they invade, it will not move forward.
And then I wanted to ask about Dr. Lander again. I know you got a question on this earlier, but does the fact that Dr. Lander has a job still cheapen the president's promise to fire anyone who treats colleagues with disrespect on the spot?
Well, again, I would just reiterate that the president takes his commitment to having a respectful work environment incredibly seriously, and it's something that he conveys clearly to all of us on a regular basis. That is why we put in place a safe and respectful workplace policy, which is the process through which this thorough investigation proceeded through, and the process through which, again, that there was an internal investigation. Dr. Lander, obviously, his behavior was inappropriate and corrective actions needed to be taken, and that was clearly conveyed through this
so boring. All right.
I think you all saw Susan Rice convey last week that we're not there yet. We want to make sure we do any action through the administration the right way, and it's thorough, but certainly that's part of what's being looked at.
All right, and on the second topic, there is a serious shroud of secrecy around the nominees for Supreme Court, understandably. And I've got two questions on this. One, what's traditional about the process?
There you go. I walked right into that one. What I think is unique in this moment is that the president is someone who has served as the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, as the vice president when there were a number of nominees, a number of historic nominees who were nominated and confirmed by the Senate. And he takes the process and the seriousness, the need for it to be thorough. He's very focused on it. I don't know that that's unique. Obviously, every president, I would hope, takes the process seriously, but he also takes, there was a question earlier about this, the component about advice, part of it very seriously in terms of consulting with Republicans and Democrats in the process. What is unique about this moment? I want to read your article about this to hear what you have to say.
We've got a lot of articles already.
Okay, your next article about it. I think it's safe to say that there are some criticisms that have been out there without any names being confirmed that are unique to having the possibility, the likelihood, the plan for a woman of color being nominated for this position. And the types of language that are used by some to describe who the president might pick as a nominee are unique to that.
Spoke a moment ago about advice on his nominees. We know the internal advice, particularly from the counsel's office as well as the vice president.
Yeah.
But external. When is the last time that the president talked to Anita Hill?
To Anita Hill?
Yes.
I would have to check on that for you, April.
Part of this process, because we know that he talked and they had a very real conversation before he became president-elect.
Sure.
I want to know, one, when is the last time he consulted with her? And if she is part, because the names of those who are on the outside are dribbling out. And is she one of those? And he respects her opinion.
I will check with our team who are overseeing the process, and you're familiar with who that internal team is. I know we probably have to wrap up soon here. Go ahead.
Yeah, two things on gas prices. So President Biden has said with oil prices that he released the strategic petroleum reserves, and that brought down prices. Actually, on that day, the price of oil actually rose, and it went down for the Omicron variant as the fears of lockdowns. Today, oil prices are $91, more than $91 a barrel. Is there any consideration in the administration to reversing any of the policies or regulations or removing some to encourage more drilling in the U.S. for future demand?
Well, let me tell you what we are doing. Of course, we tap the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Sometimes that takes some time to be digested into the system. We've also worked with a number of countries around the world to do something similar. We've been engaged with OPEC nation countries about the need for the supply available to meet the demand. We've also called out the record profits made by oil companies, which should not be lost as an issue as consumers are looking at the price that they are paying at the prices they are paying. And then I would also note that you should check with oil companies on whether they are tapping into all of the land leases they have available at their disposal. I don't believe they are.
What about encouraging the investment in?
Oh, it's so funny to pretend like the president has a knob turned to change the price of gas and not oil companies have the knob. It's hilarious. I swear it's so funny. It's quite hilarious. It really is. But let's do a state, guys. All right. Medical marijuana this year in Ohio. Activists and lawmakers in Ohio are hoping to get reform reenacted in 2022. Last month, Ohio advocates submitted to the state what they said enough signatures for an initiative to force lawmakers to take up the issue of legalization. But the Secretary of State's office said this month that there wasn't enough valid signatures, so the collection started and they had to do new submissions this week. The measure that legislators would be required to consider would legalize possession of up to 2.5 ounces of cannabis for adults 21 and older, and they'd also have up to 15 grams of marijuana concentrates. Individuals grow up to 6 plants. Separately, a legalization bill, the first of its kind introduced in Ohio, legislator would legalize the possession, sale, and cultivation by adults. So they're looking to make it completely legal to cultivate yourself and possess a fair amount. And there was also voters in 7 cities that approved measures to decriminalize possession in last November's election, which builds on a slew of previous local reforms in the state campaigns. Our campaigns are now looking to reenact decriminalization in 7 different counties. Ohio activists already successfully proved that they turned in enough valid signatures to decriminalize the initiative before Kent after they dismissed the 2001. It is the local decriminalization initiatives that have pushed the state to act. We are looking forward to adding as many local municipalities as time permits. We are gearing up for another good run at it. Solid change starts at the local grassroots level, said the Ohio Normal Representative Don Keenly. So Ohio is looking to go from a semi-strict medical to a very open recreational. Ballotspedia said about Ohio, and Ohio sponsors of the initiative to legalize recreational marijuana submitted an additional 29,918 signatures on January 13th after Secretary of State verified the initial petition that contained 119,825 valid signatures, 13,000 less than the number required. If enough of the additional signatures are found to be valid, the initiative will go before the legislator. If the legislator does not act, outright sponsors will have to collect a second round of 132,887 signatures to place it on the 2022 ballot. In 2015, Ohio voters defeated issue 3 with a margin of 63 to 36. So back when they try to make it, okay, that's a while ago. And then the other site that's good to go to is MPP, and this one was December of 2021, and they also say that the signatures were over required, and now they're going to have to look into the 132,887. And so if you want to, I will put that in the link when I do that. So if you know anybody in Ohio that wants to sign that, get this legalized. 132,887 signatures is required. That's a lot. They've done it once and it got shut down, but things have changed since 2015. So you might be able to push that forward, guys. And there's a couple clips from local stations that had some information.
Marijuana is legal in as many as 18 states as well as Washington, D.C. But the question is, could the Buckeye State be next?
Jesus.
A group seeking to legalize have 4 months.
Seriously. Okay, that won't work.
Organizers can attempt to get just under 133,000 signatures. If they do, the issue will go on the November ballot. Bill Schmidt Jr. is the founder of the Holistic Cloud located on Belmont Street in Bel Air, and he's confident legalization.
Oh, that works so close to not. Anywho, of where you can sign for the state of Ohio, you can get that signature on there, and if you know anybody in Ohio that is interested in it, send it their way. Send that clip that way. But my last real story of the night was, it is downright, I'm not going to be able to clip any of this because even playing local news seems to get me slowed down, which is insane. But we'll try this again. Yeah, Russell Brand, the headline tonight, Russell Brand and Jon Stewart are better than mainstream media. And they will be the next targets of censorship if this Joe Rogan censorship works. And yeah, they're both building a platform. I'm not going to say I agree with every word they say. I don't agree with anything everybody says. This is basic. But if you look at his channel right now, I mean, he's getting attacked, so of course his clips are going to be a lot of that. But yeah, I mean, he's actually questioning the establishment, like a news person should do. The news people are not supposed to be bought by the establishment. You know, he's checking out the convoy. He's checking out, obviously, Joe Rogan a lot right now. And just saying that might slow me down. But, you know, he's actually talking about what's going on in a reasonable way. And the narrative and, you know, the way mainstream media talks right now. Jon Stewart just started his podcast, I don't know how long ago, but I've just recently come across it. And so it seems pretty new. And the problem with, and then Jon Stewart, Jon Stewart, another comedian. Comedians are on the news right now doing better than the news. This is a very new podcast, I'm pretty sure, and he's already up to 339,000. And I mean, I know people in my generation, we miss Jon Stewart to be part of our news. The Daily Show was part of our news when it came out the first 5-6 years. That was absolutely part of our news. And it's gone so mainstream that nobody's willing to watch it anymore. And these shows are better than anything that's on CNN or MSNBC. Like, these fun, entertaining people are talking about the news better than your cable channels. And he's having actual conversations. He's talking with people on the other side, and he's discussing other topics. He's not just talking what the mainstream media wants you to talk about. And like, I won't be able to play it for more than 5 seconds. But, you know, he's talking with somebody about why billionaires shouldn't own space travel. That's an interesting topic to have. He's doing it on Apple TV, so he's contributing to a billionaire as is. But that's the world we live in. We're stuck on platforms that enrich people others than ourselves, but we still have to fight intelligence. We still have to fight, ignorance. And one of the ways to do that is to keep screaming against the wind. He's up to almost 5 million people. I just subscribed today to both. Want to keep them on my. Yes, he was included on Right Wing Road, I guess, and I played that for 5 seconds. That slowed me down. But a list of right wing Rogan guests was Russell Brand, who is, I mean, to call him far right is fucking hilarious, and that's what our mainstream media does now. They attack and they're trying to cancel anybody that's trying to do the news because their story doesn't work when somebody tries to tell the truth. And their story is bullshit, and anybody with a bullshit meter can call them out on it. And comedians who have a following and their whole lives have been being bullshit artists, you know, like calling things out. That's, you know, what comedians do. They go up stage and go, hey, isn't it bullshit that these people do this? And, you know, isn't it bullshit that that company does that? And isn't it bullshit that our government's doing this? And bam, they get some laughs. That's what a comedian does. So that's why they're telling it better than our Main Street narrative, these two comedians. The problem with Jon Stewart and Russell Brand new live show. I don't know. I wanted to try to finish with this, but again, anytime I try to do a clip, it seems to stop. So we will see if we can get anywhere into this. CNN clip about Flores claiming they were duped into party.
The Democratic Party is demanding an investigation into reports of possible voter registration irregularities after some people claim they were duped into changing their party affiliation. The party's chair sent a letter to Florida's Secretary of State expressing concern over reports that senior citizens in a Miami-Dade public housing complex unknowingly had their party changed after updating their voter registration, with people who ended up working on behalf of the Florida.
Yeah, I just wanted to test that. I don't have enough bandwidth for them. They're slowing it down a bit. All right, so I am not doing clips tonight. I'm going to have everything ready for tomorrow, though, guys. We're going to do a lot of states. I got a personal story of a Stony Progressive takedown today, and that is going to be my candidate tomorrow. They are not an incumbent, but I got to do one. I got to do one anyway. And of course, any White House press briefings, I will regurgitate to a shorter clip for you guys, and we can get baked, burn through some news, and I'll try to figure out how I can play a CNN clip without it completely just stopping me. So we will see you tomorrow at 4:20. Thursday night, doing another big night show. But see you at 4:20 tomorrow, guys. And we will do a